everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and hear this amazing discussion that we're going to have. We hope you find it informative and interesting. So we're going to try a lot of different things here to share information with you. So number one, we're going to have a presentation on it. The presentation slides are going to be pretty dense, but know at the end of our session, we're going to have a QR code where you can download our entire report, which includes these slides, plus a lot more information. Second is, well, I wanted to bring all 40 of our youth advisors. We didn't really have a budget for that. So we are bringing their voice and their perspective through audio that we're going to be playing. Third is we want to involve all of you. We want this to be interactive and get a little bit of information from you. So we are going to use Kahoot. And our first question is a pretty simple one. We just want to know who's in the room so that we can tailor our conversation to what needs you might have. So we'll go to the next. We're going to start this, and we just want to know who you are so that we can have some discussion. And then last but not least, we have this panel of amazing speakers who have been with us throughout this work. And so I'm going to do a brief introduction of them now. So at the far end is Elaine Becker. Elaine is the Director of Workforce Solutions for Ramsey County in Minnesota. And for those of you who aren't from Minnesota, Ramsey County is the youngest and the most diverse county in our state, and is also home to our state capital. She also is the Executive Director of the Workforce Innovation Board of Ramsey County, which annually distributes about $25 million in workforce funding annually. Next to Elaine is Aisha McKenzie Collins, and she is a Managing Director of the Greater MSP Partnership. Oh, we have answers now. Okay, so it looks like primarily we have educators and some mix of nonprofit and others. So welcome, and audience or panelists, you know who you're speaking to now. So back to Aisha. She leads work that is focused on supporting diverse early career professionals. Is that us? Of color. As they launch their careers in the MSP, greater MSP area. So that's Minneapolis and St. Paul. This year in 2024, Greater MSP Partnership is going to embark on a comprehensive regional talent strategy that we hope some of these ideas will be incorporated into. We also have two members of our Youth Advisory Board here with us. We have Jasmine Nagu. She graduated from Hamlin in 2022 and is currently working as an events curator for the African American Leadership Forum in Minneapolis, which is an amazing nonprofit doing really important work. During one of our design sessions, Jasmine was awarded one of our top leadership awards as well, so that'll come across in this discussion. And last but not least, we have Charles Osuko, and he was one of our top networkers at our last design session. And Charles has been an important member of our Youth Advisory Board, and he currently works for an organization called The Link that is trying to address youth homelessness. So with that, we're going to go to our next Kahoot question. Who will be the majority of Americans working class in 2032? Great answer, and I'm going to turn it over to Aisha now.
Absolutely, Heidi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time this afternoon to join us here. Greetings from a panel of folks coming from Minnesota, a cold state, but we're warm in our hearts, and we're happy to be here. So as you saw on that screen, we know that people of color will be the majority of the American working class by 2032. And we know that there are thousands of community-based organizations that are working to support youth of color as they're launching their career, getting jobs, and finding their way. We're trying to solve for this in Minnesota, just as many of you are trying to solve for in your state. But the truth of the matter is that Minnesota still ranks at the very top, which means the worst, in gaps for Black Americans in higher education attainment, income, and wealth. And we know that those disparities need to change, specifically the racial wealth gap. In fact, there's a zip code in Minneapolis that spans from the North Loop, which is a trendy warehouse district neighborhood, to the beginnings of North Minneapolis, where a large population of our Black community lives. And there's more than a $70,000 wealth gap in that one zip code divided by race. And we know that these things need to change. And in my role as the managing director for Connect's MSP, it's our mission to ensure that young adults of color are supported, affirmed, and find the path that they want in life as they launch their careers. So when Heidi Johnson, Senior VP at ECMC Group, approached me about bringing together stakeholders in our region to work on this work, both on the supply and demand side, so we could reimagine what talent pipeline ecosystem looks like, it was a no-brainer. I said absolutely. And so we've been working together since last year on this work, and the people you see on stage are invested in this work. So that's a little bit of an intro to why we're here.
Thanks, Aisha. And I neglected to introduce myself. I'm Heidi Johnson, Chief of Staff for ECMC Group. And ECMC Group is a nonprofit who for the last 30 years has been focused on supporting young underserved learners find the right post-secondary education pathway so they can move into phenomenal careers and earn a family-sustaining wage. I could stand up here for another half an hour and tell you all about ECMC, but that's not why you're here. And so if you want to learn more, please connect with us later. So when we started this work, we had this vision statement. It's okay, we're not professional presenters, it's okay. So our vision was to fully engage the education and workforce ecosystem to address some of those equity gaps that Aisha just talked about. And to really make sure that there's a particular focus that our education and workforce systems are addressing the disparities that exist with people of color in the Twin Cities. And so we needed to start our work somewhere. And so we targeted 16 to 24-year-old Black youth in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Now, while our work and our voices are from that demographic, we feel like our work can really span beyond that age group, and it can expand beyond our region. So what I have up here is a future vision of what we want the ecosystem to look like. The young adults are in the middle, and the entire ecosystem is orbiting around them, supporting them, making sure they have what they need when they need it, and that the ecosystem is working together. If we drew a map of the ecosystem in Minneapolis and St. Paul today, you would see the youth spread all over this map, looking, searching for the right ecosystem partner to help them move forward. You would also see the members of the ecosystem spread all over and working in a silo in most cases, doing phenomenal work, but not maximizing the potential of the entire ecosystem working together. So that's part of what our work is and what we're trying to focus on. So how did we do this work? When we first started this project about a year ago, we talked to lots of people who were building phenomenal solutions for youth, and the youth weren't engaging, and they didn't know why. So we wanted to flip the switch, flip the grid, and have the youth, start with the youth, and have them be at the center of our work throughout the work. And you'll hear a lot about that today. Go to the next slide. So we hired 40 youth. We paid them $25 an hour. We paid for their food, their transportation, and we wanted their voice, we wanted their wisdom and their knowledge. And so we started this project by just asking them what's working, what isn't working. If you could do things differently, what would that look like? We also brought together a group of professional advisors who volunteered their time, and in most cases were executive directors and leaders of their organization. And we brought them the personas of the youth that we created. And from there, we had about a 4-hour session, and the professional advisors created 37 different solutions or ideas of how we could do things differently. We took that back to the youth and said, what do you think? In about a 5-hour design session, they narrowed those ideas down into 7 solidified, really concrete ideas. But they were done in a vacuum, and so we brought them back to the professional advisors and said, what can we make happen? We want to honor the idea. We want to make sure that it's consistent with what they think would help. But what can we actually get done? So the professional advisors spent another design session working on that. And then in December, we brought both groups together. And we felt it was the right time. Each side felt like they had an equal power dynamic. And we co-designed together. And what we co-designed are the 3 solutions we're here to talk about today. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. So Charles and Aisha, we'll start off with you both. So tell us what your experience has been as a member of the advisory group. Why is this work important to you? And why is this youth-led approach different than other work you've experienced?
All right. So the overall experience of working with ECMC has been incredible. So much of African American history is decisions being made for us, without us. But in this project, I've been able to work with what I'll deem seasoned adults. It was the professional advisory group, people older than me. They were able to collaborate with people like me in their early 20s, late teens, to see projects that would help advance us to where the young adults like me are trying to get that next step, that first job, something that's healthy and sustainable instead of some of the low-paying jobs that people get stuck into and can't really advance farther out of. So to be part of this has been incredible.
I'll add to that, Charles. So for me, as a member of the adult advisory group, if you will, it was just really great and refreshing to connect with the young adults and let their voices lead the way for us, right? So many times we're coming up with solutions where this is really their future, not our future, and so it's important for us to really make sure that we're listening to their voices. And the other thing that was great about being on the professional advisory group, you can think about this in your community as well. You have all these executive directors or leaders of organizations who are busy working on their own thing, but it's really interesting when you take a moment to sit around the table with those folks and begin to focus on the problem and the issue together. It was great. People were so refreshed to be able to sit in a room, focus on hearing from the young adults, and then thinking about how our ideas can better support them. So I really think the model was helpful. And as you think about designing these things in your own community, really being able to have the 2 separate groups and then bringing us together really made for some great multi-generational strategizing, if you will. And it turned out really well.
Excellent. So from there, we created 3 themes and 3 ideas that we're going to talk about today. Next slide. So the first theme we're going to talk about is the power of influence. So one area we heard loud and clear from the youth is that career exploration is a stressful process. It is highly influenced by lots of people that the school doesn't really realize. So most youth go through a traditional career exploration, junior year of high school. But what happens is they talk to their parents, they talk to their family, they talk to their friends, they get on social media. And what happens is where they start to explore narrows. Because as they talk to those influencers, the influencers talk about what jobs they have, what jobs everyone in the neighborhood has, what they experience every day. They go to a store, they go to a doctor's office. And that sphere of influences narrows. And they narrow just kind of inherently the careers they explore. And so what we heard loud and clear from the youth is they want mentorship opportunities. They want internships. They want job shadowing. They want career exploration that's really hands-on opportunities so that they can expand the careers they know about and the careers they want to explore. And you're going to hear some voices that talk about that right now. Can you pause it? We can't hear it.
Really, honestly.
Alright. You could hear it was just really low.
Yeah. Not really, honestly. When I was younger, I kind of had that, but growing up, I haven't really had a mentor. Thank you.
So that's a good one because a lot of youth need mentors. And because they ain't grow with a father figure. Most youth I know, or I know. So I just always look for the right mentor, right people to look up to, guide me.
I should have learned more about coding, more about operating systems and everything. Then by now I would have had a job, all the knowledge, you know. But yeah, just keep at it. And I think the reason the reason why I stopped is that I didn't have anyone that I knew that had any knowledge of computers back then.
We had this conversation when I was in junior year. You know, I believe, that's the year that everyone, every junior, has questions on what they would like to be in the future.
And that's the thing I wish I would have said that I didn't. Basically just like asking more questions on how do I meet different people that could help me get to where I'm gonna be, like mentors, people like that have been in the position that I've been in when it comes to like their career path or thinking what they want to do with their career and then like accomplished it. Every job, every decent paying job, you have to have some type of experience. And I just graduated high school last year and I haven't had any further education past that. So it was kind of hard to like obtain experience to find a job that required experience. That makes sense.
Like the biggest challenge or obstacle I faced was trying to find the blueprint and just have the right connectivity to do what I want to do.
You can hear the passion and the frustration in those voices. So Charles, how does this theme and those voices resonate with you?
When I look at that theme, it was complicated by the pandemic. There was a loss of mentor positions because we just had to shift into a virtual environment. And going without not being able to hear voices outside of your family, there's a lot of healthcare practitioners in my family, but that's not something I was interested in. So to find those voices, it was pretty much just videos and books that were able to get me there. And it's just, with Discover Your Future, the concept that we developed, that's something that could really give a good answer to this lack of mentorship.
Excellent. So this question is for both Ling and Aisha. Ling, if you could go first. Where do you see progress being made? And what are some barriers that still exist in addressing what the youth are asking for?
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. Knowing the audience here, I just want to thank all of you educators for the great work you do investing in so many of our young people in our community. And I think the progress and the hope in this conversation is that more people have to start caring about this topic of mentorship than just people in education. And so I think really this idea of mentorship boils down to two words. It's really social capital. And young people oftentimes from diverse communities do not have that social capital, and we have to think about how to increase that bankroll, right, for young people in our community. And so I'm a workforce director in a county. As Heidi mentioned, there's workforce boards all around the country. There are, you should have one in your community. That's a great resource where progress can be made, connecting to your business associations, your chambers. Heidi and I and Aisha were just at an event this last week with our chamber, our largest chamber in our East Metro St. Paul area. We were able to have this same conversation really around how everyone who is part of a community has some responsibility to step up to helping to close some of this gap. And so this role of helping to increase social equity at a time when young people experience a lot of stress around job search or next steps, it doesn't only sit with education. The employers and the businesses and other leaders in our community also need to invest in this strategy as well.
Thank you, Ling. And to build on that, when we talk about businesses, in my work, we work with a lot of corporate partners. and they're trying to figure out how to get diverse young talent in the door, but they don't have diverse middle and upper management to be that reflection for those young adults to see. So when you think about that mentorship piece, it's so important for it to also trickle into the workplace and for companies to begin thinking about how they are promoting and supporting talent of color into getting into further leadership roles in their organization so that they can then be the mentors for the new employees coming in to see a path for themselves. We know that when you see yourself reflected, you see a path for yourself, and that is really important and something that we're working to build when we think about mentorship and corporate partners.
Excellent. So Jasmine, we've brought the concept up. Can you give us a brief overview of it?
Yeah, so in Minnesota, it's a state statute that every student is supposed to receive individualized post-high school career counseling. And through feedback, we heard that this is nothing more than a one-step, check a box process. And I don't know about you, but to us, that's not good enough. And that means that there needs to be further in-depth processing for these students to get the mentorship and the, just support that they need. So this concept around Discover Your Future is really built on creating a career exploration program where it will follow them from the time they're in 9th grade all the way till graduation. And it encompasses those things that we just talked about. So the mentorship, the job shadowing, the internships, all the things like financial planning, like all the things that you don't learn about until you're forced into adulthood. And so a vital piece of that, and a part that I feel like sets this concept apart, is that it also, in our research, when we were talking to parents and students, it was brought to our attention that, when student advisors or mentors provide like options for different careers, if they're not familiar to that family or to that social group, it's often met with, pushback, or it's told that, that's not attainable, or you shouldn't pursue that. And so a part of this program is to bring the parents and the social networks into this process so that they also understand it. You can build a trust with both the student and the parents for them to be able to pursue the career that they want to pursue. Because like we just heard, for students to make informed decisions, it falls on the people they trust the most. And that's their family, that's their social network, that's their community. So it's vital that they're a part of this process. And so that's really what Discover Your Future is about.
Excellent, thank you. All right, moving on to the next theme. So we heard loud and clear that the youth crave stability. Stability in their finances, in their community, and their sense of purpose. The youth are also craving in-person interaction that really fosters a sense of safety and belonging. They want to pursue careers, not just jobs. And they want those careers to help bring joy to their life and create a real sense of purpose. But they also still are challenged every day with meeting basic needs and getting issues that they're struggling through addressed. But they don't know where to turn within the community to get that support they need. And if they can't address those immediate day-to-day needs, then they don't really have the space or the bandwidth to really think about career exploration and what could be next. So we're going to hear their voices now.
Slope that you like alone, and you gotta take care of yourself financially before you can do anything.
It is a little discouraging, like when I go and I look for the jobs, and I finally do see a job that'll work for me, and I can work the hours, or I can do it, and it's a good amount of money, but now I can't get there because I don't have a way there.
The biggest challenges is just general life obstacles. Like everything doesn't go according to plan sometimes. A lot of places that do provide resources only provide one or the other. And what some people don't really understand is that, your financial needs can tie into your mental health.
Support with the people who are on the same journey, trying to get successful, not just wanting to live life. People who are willing to do what it takes to get there now.
So Jasmine, how does this theme and those voices resonate with you?
Yeah, so I always like to say I was not a first-generation college student, but I was the first person in my family who didn't have to settle for a job to pay the bills. And when you think about that, that's exactly what those other students and young people were talking about is, I was very privileged in that sense because I went to a private, college prep high school. I had mentors, I had really great internships, and I had access to a network. And so I'm very aware that without those resources, I probably would have fallen into, the same habits my family fell into, the same circumstances my family fell into where, I just would have had to take a job just to, make ends meet. And so it's really important for me to be a part of this work, and it's really important to do this type of work because, all students should have the access to pursue the career that they want, not because, not a career that they just have to do. Like, your dreams are powerful, and everyone, no matter where you come from, what you look like, should have access to them. So it's things like this, it's resources like this that help them get to that.
Can you help us understand how the theme of stability and community and belonging ties back to the collab concept that you're going to walk through?
Yeah, so, the collab was created because we really wanted to develop a concept that, gave all resources that a student or a young person would need in one place. And it's something that, I don't think I see a lot of. And the concept is really interesting because it would be managed by a cohort of employers and community-based organizations. And so how this would work is a 3-floor model, and each floor has a theme. And so the first floor would be around, health and well-being. So on one side, you have, employers that provide, health programming and, provide, just career navigation in that field. And then on the other side, you have the community-based organizations that will help youth with, mental health support, physical health support, food accessibility, and that kind of repeats on the other floors. So the second floor would be centered around trade and trade and construction. And so on one side it would be employers centered around, how, like, what that industry, like, entails, like just providing, trainings and things like that. And then on the other end, it would provide, housing support, transportation support, and other physical resources. And then lastly, on the last floor, it would be tech and finance, which are really big things and big disparities in these communities. And so on one end, it would be employers that, provide educational institutions. And then on the other side, the community-based organizations would provide, trainings, financial literacy help, understanding, what's a salary, how do you do your taxes, like things that they don't tell you until you have to know them. And so what's really unique and important about this model is that it has, everyone benefits from it. It's a really wraparound model. And it's that because even a good example is like the community-based organizations are benefited because, when students typically go and receive care or go to a provider, they're often told they need, other help. And instead of, them making the connection through that adult that they went and saw, they are given a name or a number to call. And for a young person, this can be very intimidating because how do I know this person? How do I know that I can trust them to get the care that I need to get? And so this model provides that sense of community, that sense of trust building, where that provider that you went and initially talked to can physically walk you over to the next resource so that you are able to build the trust and build that community and have a safe space. And it's not just about, like, the collab isn't just about finding resources, it's not just about, receiving help, receiving care, it's about providing a safe space. And I think something that I'm really thankful for and something that I think this really emulates is, like, in college, I was really active in my student center. I knew I could walk in there and I would see a friend, or I would walk in there and I would get some free food. I would walk in there and there'd be people bumping music and I could, like, escape from the things that I was struggling with. And that's exactly what we want with this building as well, is a safe space for people to go and feel like they can find community.
That's an excellent overview. So again, back to Ling and Aisha. So the foundation to this concept is the physical space that is shared across employers and people across that whole ecosystem that we talked about. So how do you bring all of those stakeholders together to create an optimal collective impact?
Yeah, well, first of all, as you guys heard Jasmine speak, you can see why we're so inspired by being able to co-create ideas with young people. I mean, just truly. I just love the idea that the things that they thought of are things that somebody who's worked in systems my whole life, would be like, I have all the reasons why this would be so hard and why this would be difficult to make work. And that's exactly the space where we need to be in order to find the next best thing for young people, because we should go exactly where we think it's gonna be really hard for systems. And I think the hardest thing from my perspective around some of this physical infrastructure and the thinking about this is just, you know, we have a lot of red tape in the way we do things. When we share space, when we share, I mean, how many of you have heard of an MOU, a JPA, a contract, right? We have all the things that make it just a lot of legalese to like getting to a path of yes. And I think we have to find a path to yes so that we can do that collectively. And that starts by, first of all, not really caring who gets credit, because it's all about the young people. And I love the original visual of the young person being at the center of the ecosystem, and they really are the center of the collab. So all decisions should be made with that in mind. Now, with all that said, there are some challenges, and I think people have to come in with a super strong growth mindset and a set of shared commitments and some shared vision, and really some innovative leaders who are gonna say, you know, we're gonna do things differently than we've done in the past, and we're willing to kind of turn over sort of, you know, all the things that we've thought about. And I appreciate the other day Heidi and I were talking about this, and she said we can't just, you know, aim for the perfect at the sake of getting to the good. You know, you just have to get to the good in the next steps that the young people have sort of ideated here. So just appreciate the ideas that you and the young, you know, the youth came up with in this. So thank you.
I agree. What I'll add to that, Lane, is I really appreciate in working with ECMC Group and Heidi, seeing your passion. I mean, we're not just putting these concepts on paper, we're trying to make it real. We're trying to find the right partners in the Twin Cities to make this happen. So we visited a space that currently has a similar concept of this collab, but perhaps it's not currently being used. It's not an optimized space currently. And so I think, you know, just showing that we can bring these ideas in there makes an actual difference. And one of the things I'll say when it comes to connecting employers and nonprofits and CBOs, community-based organizations, is that we often spend a lot of time connecting dots between a company who is looking to hire interns this summer, but they don't have a relationship with a certain school or college or university. And so by bringing willing companies and organizations into a space like this, they can foster that collaboration naturally on their own and also learn from one another. I think the other piece of this is that we don't want this space to be sterile and stuffy, right? We want this to be a place that's real and welcoming. And so finding the right employers who are willing to maybe take away their egos to make sure that this is a space where young people can really come and feel a positive vibe and connection and find trusting adults is going to be really important for this work. So excited to find the right people to put into these spaces, and excited to think about piloting this and actually testing it out so we can prove that it works.
I agree with what all of you have said. I think we're getting a lot of, it's a great idea, but here's why we can't do this. And we need to change that mindset into how do we make it happen, and how do we pilot this and try these new things. And the employer piece is really critical, which gets to our third theme that we heard from the youth, is the youth have a really strong expectation that the employer that they are going to work for cares about them, creates a sense of belonging for them, finds ways that they can be their whole self at work. But what the youth are also running into is that they're running into a lot of employers who expect years of experience to move into an entry-level job. They expect people to find them, as opposed to going and finding and researching and seeking out this young, diverse talent. What we also heard loud and clear is that the youth want to move into these roles, but they don't have the social capital to find the jobs, to open the doors that a lot of other people that don't have these backgrounds experience. And so while the youth didn't say this exactly, because they didn't really, I think, understand it, what the professional advisors heard loud and clear is we have to build ways for these youth to expand their social capital to move into these phenomenal careers that exist in the Twin Cities. So with that, we're going to hear some more voices.
Looks like you, no one really talks like you, and you know, it's tired of like code switching and, you know, doing all that, trying to like be presentable. Just having to have these just high standards that people were just like, you know, you're not good enough.
It's just like this older white guy interviewed me, and like there were so many things about that interview that helped me to know like I didn't want to work there. And even from the very beginning of the interview where he like came up and sat almost way down in his chair, the way like he wasn't taking it seriously at all, and it felt like every question he asked me was to get me to prove to him why he should even be giving me this interview.
Before I had a record, it was very easy to get a job, man. I got a record, it was very hard to get a job. So it was very irritating, because like I ran across a lot of jobs that's like, oh yeah, but just waiting on your background check and get you started. Background check, come back, didn't pass. Like, it's ridiculous.
They'll see like white men, and it's just like, how do I find a community in them?
I feel like I have to be really picky now, and I'm like not gonna just take anything.
Be in a healthy environment and allow yourselves to flourish, as well as become a more higher version of yourselves.
My record is my record, but come on, man, that ain't the end all be all.
I used to tell them like I was gonna be the president. They was like, that's like not really a thing for a black person to be that in that high of a position. I'm like, yeah, well, watch me.
Watch her. Charles, how does this theme and those voices resonate with you?
With that, there's just the question of how white do I need to behave to be accepted in this space? There's that struggle of being genuine to yourself and trying to get the job. Because so often it feels like you have to make a compromise in order to get into a professional space or to move up and ahead in the professional space. That's really how it comes. There's just that we don't expect to be accepted initially, so we alter our behaviors to try to get that golden ticket.
Got it. So can you tell us how this sense of acceptance and belonging and seeking that ties back to the Career in 45 Days? And tell us a little bit about Career in 45 Days.
Yeah, so with the Career in 45 Days, that initial concept, we're of course looking at companies that already have established that they are looking for diversity, equity, and inclusion. They have that in their leadership. They have that just in their culture. So the Young Adult Advisory Group, people like me, mentioned several needs that need to be addressed when it comes to securing a first job and launching their career. The most important was having support and mentorship from a trusted source to help us navigate the job search and hiring process. Other things we were looking for is, of course, companies that are willing to take a chance on us, companies that will help us gain experience for better paying jobs, and a company that has a welcoming work environment to have people and leaders that are willing to work alongside people who look like us. We wanted this process to be quick and not drawn out. So originally, the youth, we said, career in 2 days? But as we worked with the professional advisory group, this evolved into career in 45 days, which became a much better idea that was much more holistic. So we had high-touch, one-on-one support with career coaches and navigators to help young people go through the journey of researching jobs, preparing their resumes, practicing for interviews, and evaluating companies. So we came to a multi-week hiring program to help us prep, interview, and find sustainable careers at diverse, equitable, and inclusive Minnesota-based companies. So some key functions were young adults being able to have a list of roles at key companies, ranging from entry-level internships all the way to post-grad positions. And this would include a chance to participate in company tours and employee interviews, since we've all seen the company promos where you get that generic corporate music, it looks beautiful, and they just say, you should work with us. The reason we want the employee interviews, that lets us know what's really going on. Do you like this job or like the job? And then even if you go through the 45 days and you go through the interviews, if you don't get a job, what's really important is feedback. Because I've sent over 100 job applications, I've gotten 3 interviews, and only 2 companies have given me feedback. But with this career in 45 days, you get personalized feedback from that employer. And we also get to use AI tools like Poise. This is a Zoom chat feature that's able to look at your eye contact, your speech rate, your vocal tone, a lot of things to see how eloquent of a speaker you're being, and just helping you be an even better interviewer. So we want this idea not just to be a Minnesota-based concept. The reason we're sharing this is to hopefully bring it out to more communities and more states.
Excellent, great overview, Charles, thank you. So Lake Ramsey County, with your leadership, is really innovative in this space. So what do you believe must be true in order for this innovative recruiting model like this to live and to expand?
Yeah, this is another great idea here that we're really interested in pursuing in our community, but
Should I give her mine?
is that better?
All right, so I think this idea requires some acknowledgement in a community. One, it's about when you hire and build a workforce, it's really not a transactional exercise. It's about how you build a community. Building a community means that you invest in the people that make up the members of your community, including those in your workforce. And I think this is one of those things that while it's 45 days, this is a journey for an employer to decide to say yes to this. It is agreeing to, all the parts of the employee life cycle that you care about the individual employees and the young people that you bring on. And for our community, and I think for a lot of others around the country, as Heidi and Aisha mentioned in the statistics, we have a changing demographic labor force in our community. It is young, it is diverse, young people want agency, and the employers that step up and are willing to do this relational type of hiring with investments, with intentional investments, they will have a competitive advantage. And so these are the types of conversations we have to have, and I keep pushing that. I appreciate you all educators, but I think these ideas have to get to the employer community for them to hear the same things, because this is their corporate responsibility for their communities too, is to invest in ideas like this, because this is their supply chain. This is their business model for the future. This is the way that they're going to find the economic and competitiveness for their business. So, yeah.
I agree with you, Ling, and I'm hopping on it. So, I know there's a question for me too, right?
There is a question, but go ahead, you just jumped in, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll be sure to answer the question around how we ensure employers are advocating for and championing this. And the way that, one of the things that I wanted to share with you all is, in Minnesota, we actually have the most Fortune 500 companies per capita. We have the headquarters of General Mills, Target, Best Buy, 3M, Medtronic, all these big corporate companies. And oftentimes, when they look at entry-level talent, they're recruiting from the East Coast or from colleges that are not in Minnesota. And frankly, they're overlooking talent right in their backyard, which are people like Jasmine, like Charles, and many more, who maybe if you attend a community college or a smaller university, it's not as prestigious or on the radar of the recruitment team, and that is a grave mistake, because guess what? When you hire diverse talent from outside of the state to move from, for example, me from Atlanta to Minnesota, which is cold and not as diverse as where I'm from, I might move there for that job opportunity, but once it starts to get cold and I realize the food isn't as seasoned as it is back home, I might be like, Minnesota may not be for me. Luckily for me, I found love and built my family there, but for a lot of young, diverse talent, they will move to our region, and they will leave in 3 to 5 years. And then companies have to start all over again. And so the work I'm leading with Connects MSP is helping those corporate partners to not overlook the talent in our backyard. Especially because the young adults of color from Minnesota, they're used to the cold and their families are there, right? So like they're more likely to stay in our state and contribute to our economy. I say that in jest, but it's real. Those are factors that you consider when you look at your career. And as we work with companies and make sure that we're advocating for something like career in 45 days, I think we've also seen a shift in companies' commitment. There's sort of like a DEI drawback. People are getting a little bit more shy about, coming forward to say that they're looking to hire diverse talent. And so with Career in 45 Days, I think we can hone in on the companies who still want to be bold in that way, Heidi, who want to build out their employee resource groups and mentorship pipelines. I think those are the companies we're targeting for this. And it's not going to be every company in Minnesota, right? We're working with the ones who want to actually put in this work.
And you want to compete for their future talent workforce. Excellent. So we've shared the 3 ideas and the 3 themes. So Jasmine and Charles, how has your involvement in the Youth Advisory Board impacted your thoughts about your future? And what advice do you have for the folks in the room if they want to engage youth to develop solutions to address racial equity gaps? Charles, you want to go first?
All right. So overall, with these ideas we've had, I've realized that the development and cost, I'm probably not going to be a youth by the time we get the ideas out there, operational. But I'm okay with that, and I'll be glad for that, because at least my younger siblings could enjoy the full idea. And it's really given me a lot of hope, just to see the change of how a lot of coalitions are trying to tackle the issue with the people they're trying to assist, opposed to just saying, yeah, we can do this. Sure, I didn't talk with anyone who has a lived experience, but this will help, I'm sure of it. I went to college for it. No, instead we're reflecting with people who have lived experience to come to a good idea and good practice on how to move forward. And my overall experience being here, we went to Swift's attic. I've loved everything I've done as I've been working with ECMC. And I'm just so hopeful of where this can end up.
Excellent, that's great. Jasmine?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Minneapolis, so this work is extremely, extremely personal to me. And I think through this experience, I've just been very grateful, because I've gotten asked tons of time to come and, share your experience, share your trauma, so that a group of experienced experts can build solutions. And I feel like this was the first time that I was brought in a space and asked what solutions I actually want to see. And I think when we think about moving forward, how we engage youth, how we go about things like this, that's the key. Have the care, have the forethought to look at these students and go, you're not just here to share your experience and share what you've gone through. You deserve to be a part of ideating how you want to see change happen. And I think ECMC has really grasped that well, and it has really changed my perspective on how I go about working with youth, how as a youth I would like to be treated in space. So really powerful.
Excellent. Well, great. Well, now we're going to engage all of you for the last few minutes. So our next question is, do you have any youth-generated ideas or programs like this in your community that you can share with us? Because we don't want to have to reinvent a wheel that might already exist. We'd love to model something off of something that already exists. So we'll give this for about 60 seconds. Feel free to type in some thoughts. Seconds is a really long time when you're standing up here waiting for people to type in their phone. And we aren't showing the answers with the way we have this configured. Yeah, just some of this information might be proprietary or anything else, so we will consolidate all of this. In the end, 10 seconds left. We have one more question for you. Okay, thank you for the 4 of you who submitted the answers. Okay, our second question is an open-ended question. What advice do you have for us as we continue this work? You know what, let's skip the Kahoot. Does anybody have any advice they want to share? So I don't have to stand up here?
I guess it's advice / a question. I was just wondering how much or if you've worked with like the community college in the area, because a lot of this kind of seems like things that community college try to do, but maybe don't get to go far enough, and if there's some ways to collaborate in that way.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. And a couple of the community colleges are part of our advisory group, and they are clamoring for some of these solutions because they've been trying to get them off the ground and didn't have that collaboration or the funding to make some of that happen. Does anybody else have another idea before I do the closing? Okay. Okay, great.
It's a question.
Okay, great.
Hi, can you speak a little more about how you ensured that a company's DEI efforts were like legitimate, and not just like, we're doing it because everyone else is doing it, but that it was like, we're serious about this?
Yeah, we really tried to vet companies to make sure that they're walking the talk, and if they're not really doing that, then we refer them to resources in the community that can help them get further along on their DEI journey. But things like talking with employers, asking them if they have employee resource groups, and talking to those folks about how supported they feel. Do they feel like they have a mentor within the company? Do they know what their next role would be? Do they actually feel like they have a career path in the company? And then some companies, release reports about what they're doing. Sometimes it's in the news, but then also just connecting with chief diversity officers on the staff and really understanding what their plan is, and if they're willing to be public about what some of their hiring goals are. That's another telltale sign. Sometimes you'll find that companies will just say, we plan to double our diverse workforce this year, but then there's no report out at the end of said year about that. So, it's a combination of the relationships that we have both with the leaders in that company as well as employees of color who are they're on the receiving end of being an employer of color at that company, and we kind of talk to them about what their experiences are.
Excellent. I think we've got one more question, but before we do that, because I know people leave to go to their next session, a couple of things. One, the QR code is for our full report. The second QR code is ECMC Group would love for you to fill out just a really quick survey to let us know what you know about ECMC Group. Oh, we lost connection. And then we realized that we wanted to spend the majority of the time here listening to the phenomenal people in this panel and the voices back from Minneapolis. But we want to continue this discussion. And so we are hosting a breakfast tomorrow. Information is on the board. And we're going to have details about the 3 ideas and concepts. And the team that's been helping us work on this, the 5 of us plus several other of you in the room will be there to learn your ideas, to have a discussion, and to share more about what we're doing. So, I know food is sometimes hard to come by, so this is a free breakfast as well, if nothing else. You had a question?
A suggestion.
Okay, great.
So you said earlier that one, you're looking to scale to other places, but you also said that one of your learnings was that you crave in-person interaction. And so I'm head of product at Reach Pathways, similar goals and actually a similar model. We have 10 scholar tech advisors that help us build tech. We pay them $20 an hour, and they're all over the country. And we do meet once a quarter in person, which they love, but we've been trying to design something that we can scale virtually in a metaverse tech platform. So the consideration is to maybe test a pilot on something like that, maybe metaverse where students have their avatars, they can dress them the way they want to, and design and have experiences more so in the virtual world, and then maybe not as often in person to see if they like that too.
That's a great suggestion. That would help us from expansion from a Minnesota perspective. I think. What'd you answer?
I said, come to the breakfast, please.
Oh, okay, great. Yes. I think the other component, though, is that we heard loud and clear, particularly the youth in Minneapolis. That's where the epicenter, right, in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd, right? And so our youth saw all that and lived it. And so that in person, and they're still living. mean, the violence is pervasive. And so what we heard loud and clear is, yes, we want those connections and we want to learn, but we also need to take care of each other and build near-peer relationships and really help repair some of the mental health issues that are happening in our community. Anybody want to expand on that at all?
Hello. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, after George Floyd was murdered, it shined a light on the Twin Cities. But the thing is, those communities of color have been there for years, for generations. And so just really, I think for a lot of leaders of color in our community, it was a chance for them to step up and say, we've been talking about this the entire time. It is time to make some change. We are going to hold our leaders accountable. I think that was a big piece of the shift in our community. And, you know, companies came alongside and made statements like, you know, we're going to commit as well to changing the outcomes. But I think we're beginning to come to that divide of like the companies that are actually walking the talk and those that are sort of have leadership that might be pulling back a little bit. You know, we have the affirmative action rulings, and so now people are taking race off of scholarship applications and things like that. I mean, so many things are changing and shifting, and I think we're moving into the era of like, are you walking the talk, or is your company, did you just say it and now you're, you know, dialing back? So we're gonna go where the energy is and where people are actually trying to make change.
And then to expand on that, because Aisha, I really liked your point about how George Floyd impacted our community and like kind of the aftermath of what, you know, our youth and just people have experienced. I'm gonna be very honest, we're exhausted. Because as soon as someone brings up George Floyd, as soon as someone brings up Minneapolis, we're deemed as this dangerous place. You can't walk downtown, you can't live downtown. And like I said, I've been there my whole life. On that block where George Floyd was murdered, I have walked there with my friends. I have gone to that corner store. And so we have to start thinking past that and start thinking of how we can build the solutions to fix all the problems, not just one problem. Because some of these models are really great because you can really see the intersectionality between a lot of the themes and a lot of the things that we want to, you know, make happen. And I think when we think beyond that, we have to figure out, you know, how are we supporting a community that has been dragged for 3 years now, dragged through mud, 4 years, it's 2024. Yeah, dragged. So yeah, it's really just about building solutions, taking care of community from all aspects.
Thank you. And I think what you're hopefully getting across is with this model of professional advisors and amazing youth who want to make a difference and who believe and have that hope for something that's different, if we work together and collaborate, the sky's the limit. And I just want to congratulate Jasmine and Charles. This is the first time you have ever done anything like this. And I think they did a phenomenal job. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your time and energy. And again, free breakfast if you want to come chat further about this. Thank you so much.